Hello everybody, Ghost Critic here, and the little teaser I gave you on my Thursday review show is finally here to be revealed. For those of you who watched one of my videos a couple of weeks ago regarding changes I was going to make on my channel, you would have heard me put forward the idea that in light of the Before Watchmen prequel that's coming next month in June, I was going to do a series of videos reviewing every issue of The Watchmen, the original series. And that seemed to be pretty well received, which was great news. And then a certain YouTuber here in our comic book community had an idea, Mr. Agent 42Q. And that idea he proposed started germinating in my head, and it grew and it grew and it grew. And over the last couple of weeks I've been gathering up my YouTube friends to help collaborate on this special crossover event. Now, over the next couple of weeks you're going to see 11 different people from our comic book community, and they're each going to take an issue of Watchmen and they're going to do their own review on it. Now, in the description box below, I've put links to all the YouTubers' channels that are taking part in this collaboration. It would be a great favour to me if you just expand that box, check down the list, and if there is anybody there that you're not yet subscribed to, please go and hit the link and then hit their subscribe button. That way you're not going to miss out on any one part of this series. There are going to be people there that you recognise straight away. There's people that you may be aware of, and there are certainly some people in there that are just starting out here. So it all kicks off properly this coming Monday with Howler Mouse reviewing the very first issue, and I've got to say, personally, I'm very excited to see what everyone is going to be putting out there regarding these videos. Now, I have to say, you know, there's probably people out there that aren't even aware of Watchmen as a series, and you know, there is no shame in that whatsoever. We all start out somewhere, but some of the guys said to me that, you know, when you do this intro, let's have a little bit of history, a little bit of backstory about the title, you know, where it's come from and where it is now. So here we go. This is by no means comprehensive, but just a kind of short introduction about Watchmen. Now, Watchmen was a series originally published by DC back in 1986. It was put out as a 12-issue limited series, obviously written by Alan Moore, artwork by Dave Gibbons, and John Higgins as the colorist. Now, as a first-time reader of Watchmen, you'll probably see or have the assumption of some of these characters being very similar to comic book heroes that you're already aware of, that are in the run of comics you buy now. There's a character in the book called Night Owl, and there are certainly similarities with that character with, say, Batman. Another character, Dr. Manhattan, he's often been compared to a kind of Superman-esque character. And you know, those assumptions are not necessarily wrong. The characters within Watchmen are certainly archetypal genre characters that, you know, all the comic book companies will use at one time or another and will continue to use. But the original idea for Watchmen came from somewhere completely different. Back in 1983, DC bought out Charlton Comics, And when they bought out the company, along with the company came obviously all their comic book characters. So you had characters like Captain Atom, Blue Beetle, The Question, Nightshade, among many others. And Alan Moore's idea originally was to take these comics that DC had just bought and put them in his Watchmen story. Now he took it to the then managing editor, whose name was Dick Giordano, and put forward his Watchmen story. Now Giordano looked over the story and was shocked, and he said, "I can't do this. You're basically killing off one of the characters in the first issue, and then by the end of your run you've made these characters so dysfunctional and so unusable that I'm not going to get any life out of them after your series." But he loved the story. So he said to Alan, he said, you know, go away and make some original characters and I'd be happy to publish this story. So of course Alan went away, obviously very passionate about this story, and he created these new characters that we see in Watchmen. But again, these were characters very similar and could be compared to those old Charlton comic characters. So it's like Captain Atom became Dr. Manhattan, Blue Beetle became Night Owl, The Question became Rorschach, and Nightshade became Spectre, along with many other of the characters. Now, the basic premise of Watchmen, and I'm kind of dumbing it down, we'll get much more into the themes of the story as each person, I'm sure, does their reviews. But the basic premise is that while we are set in an alternate reality, we are living in a world that is populated by superheroes. At least they originated back in the 30s and 40s, but by the time the end of the 1970s come, superheroes are outlawed. And so for the most part, these superheroes have gone into retirement. They're just living their day-to-day lives and trying to put, you know, their costume superheroics behind them. Now, given that it is still in this alternate reality, there still is many comparisons throughout the book for the society that was actually happening then in the 80s. And although Alan Moore twists historic events, he throws in there the Vietnam War, the Soviet nuclear threat, and Richard Nixon's presidency. It's all enmeshed in The Watchmen. Now, the design of the actual book was pretty much like nobody had ever seen before, from like Gibbons' 9-panel grid that ran primarily throughout the book, to the moodier colouring that was pretty much the antithesis of what the superhero books were like, with their day-glow bright colours, which was brought to us by Higgins. At the back of each comic there was a supplementary prose piece which further enriched this universe, and, you know, also gave us a backstory, a history of what had come from these characters within the book. And then Alan Moore's device of the story within the story, coming from the Tales of the Black Freighter. Now, reception to Watchmen was huge. It was a commercial success for DC, and it was critically lauded from all areas. It was certainly seen as a big turning point in the comic book industry that had pretty much stagnated for many years, and everyone started jumping on the bandwagon of this more edgier, moodier, more psychologically based superhero storytelling. The book itself has been reprinted over and over again in many formats, and unfortunately for Alan Moore at least, has certainly led to ownership disputes with DC. which is still to this day going on. But regardless, this is a much loved book by a great vast majority of the comic book readership. It spawned a movie. It almost had a toy line. There were talks of a cartoon. Can you believe it? But over the next couple of weeks, you're going to see your comic book community give their take on Watchmen. I hope you all enjoy this. I'm certainly looking forward to it. Take care, everybody. I'll see you on Monday.